Welcome to a special episode of Performing the Arts. My name, as always, is Brian M. Davis. I'm actually being joined by three lovely, talented people who I all know from this small college called Brooklyn College that I probably you all haven't heard of before. But yeah, I'm not talking about why I know them, but I'm going to be talking to why they joined together along with. There's like five people in this group, but two other people couldn't make it tonight. So I'm talking about their theater group, Alliance of Creatives Theater. So yeah, take it away. How did this idea come about?
I'll answer to that. So a lot of us, let me start from the beginning. We are all friends from Brooklyn College. We are all part of the theater department at the school. When quarantine hit, obviously it was very hard for us, not being able to do theater in person or do theater at all. Acting is one thing, but designing something is so much harder over
Yeah.
Zoom if you have no actors to design for. So one day we were kind of like, what if we just designed a show that like isn't gonna go up, is not gonna get performed, but we just created a design for it. And we did, and we had a lot of fun, and we were like, well, what if we just kept doing this and then brought in actors and like started doing online theater like in the whatever way that we could. And so that's kind of how Alliance of Creatives was born, was just us being like, what if we just did the thing? Pretty much.
I know the production you're referring to is actually something that I heard you talk about in our shop class, not shop class. Well, our prop class. That's almost like shop class. Sorry, Luca. That's yeah, in our prop class, which was Madame Butterfly, and so was M Butterfly literally the genesis of just doing AOC Theater, or was it just like the same notion of, hey, what you just said before, Emily, which was, hey, uh, we all know each other, we all love theater, we all miss theater. Let's just keep on doing this.
A little bit of both, I feel like. It's kind of what you were saying. It's exactly like, hey, we're all together, we like doing theater, let's do this. But I think doing that project together showed that we could do something
Yeah.
together online that like looked really good and like had like so much effort and like beauty in it. It showed that we were, not only did we want to do this, but that we were like very much capable of doing it, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Which is kind of amazing because the performances that I've been through. I mean, been through. I feel like I've been through by saying I've been through war by saying that. But the performances I've done with yous, it's been very good. We recently just did Almost Maine. I'm pretty sure after this recording has been done, you all just done twice trifles. Before that, you just did our readings of over the what is it over the wall over the garden wall. Before that was a reading of Knives Out. So yeah, it's like all these readings I've been doing with this group has been a pleasant fun surprise. But uh, yeah, now I know there's five people in this group in terms of like leadership or cabinet. Could you explain like what your roles are by chance? I mean, not by chance, but like what are you all? I mean, what roles do you fill out with each person? Starting with Jess.
Um, our, I mean, I've taken more of the like social media route uh than everybody. Like I basically have control of our social media accounts. Um, but for the most part, like with decision making and figuring out what we want to do next and like reaching out to people, it's more of a collective idea.
Yeah.
Because we want, one thing that we've learned from Brooklyn, from our own schooling, and then just all the stuff that's been going on there, is that we want to have a place where everybody's opinions and values and ideas are heard. So we want to have this be as devised as we can be. So with that, just like basically we've kind of built our own little routine of like every Tuesday we come together and are like, okay, these are our ideas for what we want to do. We all talk about them and figure them out, and then from that forward, then we move on and do all of the official things and cast people and announce our new readings and all of that.
Bones, what about you? What do you do in the group?
I'm the email person, so any email you ever receive will be drafted, written by me, and then Erica, who couldn't make it today, is usually the person who edits like the social media posts or any emails that may or may not have typos in them. She just is like the second pair of eyes that goes over everything because she's really good at it, and she makes sure that none of us look ridiculous in any social media aspect or like emails that we send out for casting calls, etc. And like sometimes we write scripts for like readings that we want to do. If we can't like find them, we end up transcribing them ourselves. So like depending on the reading, Emily did recently Almost Maine. I did Over the Garden Wall. So transcribing scripts is something we all also do, which is really fun. Jess also transcribed, I believe, Charlie Brown recently as well. So it's like it's been a time. But yeah, we all have kind of like our own little niche part of it. But like Jess said, we come together as a collective to make any decisions that are important and or small, like any decision really, is kind of put through the company every Tuesday when we have our meetings, where it's like, hey, here's everything, let's talk about it, and then we come to decisions, and then next Tuesday we make more decisions, and then it's a ball rolling situation. So
and Emily, and I know Emily by heart, so I'm pretty sure her role in the thing has been okay. I'm gonna be the SM.
I mean, I guess kind of. My primary role has actually been like social media, like post creation kind of a thing. Jess is the one who organizes all our social media, is the one posting and keeping it alive. Like Bone said, Erica is the one editing all our posts and making sure that I don't look silly. And then Z, who couldn't be here tonight, does our video editing for all of our readings and performances. Big shout out to them because literally none of us have any idea what we're doing, and they make our videos look so good. Also, shout out to Canva, sponsor us maybe. They're what we use to make our social media posts, which always look gorgeous, and it is not really because of me. But just again to kind of like piggyback off of what everyone else said, the reason we've kind of divided up our roles that way, as opposed to being like, this person's the artistic director and this person's the technical director, is that like when we created this, we also wanted to kind of rethink the structure of theater in a way, and kind of like Jess said, like make it a more devised, more collaborative process, as opposed to like the hierarchy that you kind of tend to see in most theaters. So we just kind of wanted to like, again, kind of break down that hierarchy and make it more a more collaborative and interactive space for everyone.
Yeah, last semester, our Brooklyn College was with devising with Jolie Tong and Laura Tessman, and the half of the semester that I did the classes there with them, it was so fun because devising is what you just said before, Emily, is like, oh, we all have, it's like, even though it was a 4-group people, even though I was literally in a 4-group, even though I was in a 4-person group, even though there was like maybe other groups had maybe like 3 or maybe even 5, depending on like the group itself, like each person in that group had a role, and with that role, essentially, not only did our process of, I want to say the process of creating the play that we were creating actually allow us to, become a lot more better, but it helped us like literally be a lot more better in the hands-on behind the scenes approach, where it's like, oh, all the things you think we have, who's going to be director, all right, who's going to be the writer. That was essentially all of us. We were the director, we were the writer. We had the final say, especially if it was a scene that we wrote. So yeah, even if it was like a one-person monologue, right? We all pitched into ideas of what that monologue could be, even though the person writing that monologue could have been like, "This is the type of thing I'm going to do with this monologue." Blah blah blah. So yeah, it's definitely a collaborative effort from what I'm hearing, especially when you're doing a theater group. I know, Emily, you may have been joking around, or maybe you've been, or would have been serious. Maybe I forgot when, either last year or maybe earlier this year, that you were thinking about doing a theater club at Brooklyn College. If Brooklyn College was still open, even though it is technically still open, but it's online, so technically speaking, it is open. But if the campus was open to students, would AOC Theater have been the Brooklyn College student student theater club? Because I know there are other places that have had theater clubs in the past, especially with my colleges in the past. BMCC had a great drama club. Hunter College, from what I remember, had a great drama club. So would AOC Theater, if Brooklyn College has if Brooklyn College was still open to the public, right, and this was a normal semester and all that stuff, would AOC Theater be existed as a drama club for Brooklyn College, or would that just be a separate club? I mean, separate organization altogether? Because I know there is a music club. I mean, not music club. There's a musical theater, uh, musical theater division. No, not division, but there was like a musical theater like group that does their own like musicals and whatnot at Brooklyn College, even though they're not like a club itself. Ugh. I know that was a long spiel to hear, but once I get rolling, this is just my way of speaking.
No, that's a really good question. I think if Alliance of Creatives was going to be a thing, if Brooklyn College was still open, I think it would have just happened a little bit later. I do think quarantine definitely opened up our ability and availability to form this collective, we'll call it, because a lot of us are, like Jess has already graduated, a couple of us are taking less classes or are not coming back to school next semester, so we have the availability to put in the work and the effort to make this a thing. But I don't know that this wouldn't have happened if we were still in person, because again, like through quarantine, we see it a little bit clearer now. But it's still like when the school was open, there still definitely was a need for student-run groups. Brooklyn College does a great job of putting on a lot of productions, but just the student body is so large, and the needs of the student body are so varied that like kind of need student-run groups to provide opportunities for every student. So I think something like Alliance of Creatives would have happened. It might have happened at a slower pace. It might have not happened as quickly, but I think something would have still happened. And maybe be a slightly different group of people. Maybe it wouldn't be organized the way that we've organized it, but something like it. The core of it would still be there, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Like with this show, I originally had this idea. I was like, okay, earlier this year, which feels so long ago, right? I figured at the end of my semester, I want to do a show where I just start interviewing people, because I was already interviewing people before the school newspaper, right? Shout out to the Brooklyn Hound, and the process of interviewing people had always been a great thrill of mine, because I'd be talking to people and I'd be interviewing these people, and all these questions would always be popping up in my head because I'm a very inquisitive person. And cut to the fact that it's like, okay, if I do want to do an interview show, what would be what would I be interviewing people with? And I thought about it, I was like, okay, I'm in theater. Okay, I have a theater background. I'm an actor. At least I try to be, that sort of thing. And who do I know that I could actually help not only promote themselves, but also the show in general? And I was like, okay, I'll just start interviewing other actors. And of course, over quarantine, this idea became more and more of a idea, and I started really planning out this whole thing, because if it wasn't for quarantine, or at least staying at home and essentially just staying at home and just figuring out what to do next, especially with online classes and graduating and stuff like that too, is like, where would I go next when quarantine has essentially shut me into a hole? Well, not shut me into a hole. Well, yeah, it has shut you into a hole where it's like, you can't really go anywhere, but you can go anywhere, but you can't really go anywhere. And that made no sense, but it makes sense to me. But yeah, it's like early this year, I like the original idea I had was, okay, I'm actually gotta go and meet with these people hand to hand now, because I do have a tripod, I do have a camera, and do all that stuff. But of course, with the pandemic going around and the fact that the quarantine was still happening, and it still is happening, even though it has been like less and less now because of it's the holiday season now at the time of recording this. So yeah, if it wasn't for the quarantine, I probably would have still been like kicking over the idea of what the show is about, and I wouldn't be doing like the fourth season already by the time I've already been putting this out. By the time this is released, I'll probably be already in the process of doing the fifth season, or maybe even sixth season, depending on how fast I can actually do this thing. But I have a job now, so life happened. So
Yep.
yeah, but yeah, it's interesting to note that because of quarantine and the fact that there is no theater, other theater artists have been trying to do essentially Zoom theater, or workshops, like seminars. Uh, I know, Bones, you do a great thing with Twitch of like showing your Twitch streams every now and then uh, of your artwork and stuff like that too. So yeah, it's, I think, because the lack of theater for this year, even though this year started up strong with theater. Well, I wouldn't say started up strong. The theater world in general at the start of 2020 was a little hectic, but now it's starting to coming a lot more stronger because of what's been happening. And probably people who were, especially with Broadway shows or musicals that were going to be playing now, like, okay, well, give that light, for the next like year or so. So people who had shows to do now is like, okay, we have more time to advance and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, it's odd because without the quarantine stuff that's happening and all that stuff, I wouldn't really. It's probably the same thing what you just said before, where my show probably would have happened, but at a much later date after, because I take so long to get around to an idea and get everything fully fleshed out, because I'm the type of person that really has OCD. So I'm just like, any idea I have, it has to be fully fleshed out, fully fleshed out. Otherwise, I'm just like, all right, this idea into the garbage. It's like that sort of thing. But yeah, I do agree that if it wasn't for quarantine, there wouldn't be that many collaborations, regardless of the fact of just being able to do theater like this. So, rant out of the way. Now, you did mention Brooklyn College, and you mentioned student-run organizations, especially with the student body there. especially being students of Brooklyn College. I've only been a Brooklyn College student for only like maybe 2 years or so, so I wasn't really in the thick of everything. So I was more of like uh, an outsider looking in, because even though I was still technically part of theater, I had like already been like I always fancy myself as more like a theater technician now, because I feel like theater technicians have a lot more fun in terms of making a show, all that stuff too, because they have much more of the practicality of everything. So yeah, in terms of Brooklyn College, how has your education there been shaping you to where you see theater now? Who wants to go? Come on.
Jess, you want to go first? Because I have thoughts.
Sure, I can go first. I mean, my time in college in general wasn't super long. I was only there for 2 years, like you. So
Yeah.
my perspective is a tiny bit different because I like threw myself into the deep end with theater, and then just stayed there. So that was the only like real look of the school I got. Um, and I would say the out of everything I have learned, the one thing that I've will probably take with me for forever is creating inclusive spaces where every single voice can be heard and feels heard, and just creating I'm all about positivity and optimism, and like being at Brooklyn College really showed me that if you are given a space where you are supportive and positive and you are welcoming of everybody, people will want to be there. They will want to create work. They will want to make sure that that work is the best it can be, and you will
Yeah.
create very, very good shows. I've seen it at I worked on 2 shows where that was the entire energy from start to finish, and those shows were amazing and so well done. And then I've also worked on the other spectrum where like no one was happy, everybody was stressed, no one was having a good time, and those shows sucked.
Yeah.
So it's really that is something that like I think really had shown me, and I'm like really thankful for those uh whether it's running crew or even like assisting on a show at Brooklyn. I'm really grateful for those opportunities because it really showed me like how I want to move my own theater career, and what I know
Yeah.
will make an environment I that I can thrive in, that I can help other people thrive in as well. And yeah, also shout out to Michael Page. I love he's the one who like he's the one that kind of really showed me that I have much more to offer than I thought I did in the theater world, and really did show me that side of theater that really did make me I guess you can say that it really did make me like fall in love with it a little bit more, and really show that like, oh, this isn't just I'm decently good at theater, so I can make this a career, but like, oh no, I can actually make something for myself, and I'm actually good at what I do.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the staff and staff and professors and teachers, what have you, at Brooklyn College, I really wouldn't love theater as much as I love theater at Brooklyn College, because the staff over there really do give a shit, and they really do care a lot. And that's just me, and because I must have learned a lot more as a technical student, more than I did as an actor in anywhere else. And that's not putting shade on any other colleges. It's just that at Brooklyn College, I was learning more about technical theater more than the other places I've learned about in the past. It's like, oh, I've learned about stuff that I would learn about, like, oh, I know how to handle like SARS and all that stuff, but there'd be like tricks with all these. There'd be like tricks inside the scenic shop. There's like I would be able to move a lot more faster. It was like being a theater person, but in behind the scenes theater person, it's a much more of a weirder world, especially since people think, oh, when you think of a theater, it's like, oh, you want to be an actor, or you want to be an actress, or you want to be a director there, yelling at people on stage for not doing their lines or something like that. But with theater, there's always other places. There's always other people to do in theater. There's always other. That came out phrasing wrong. Okay. There's always other professions in theater that people can do spectacularly: lighting, scenic design, sound design, uh, set construction, so forth and so on. And scenic design and set construction are not necessarily the same thing, but they are technically still the same but different. Scenic design basically means, hey, you get to paint all this stuff that we all created. Set construction means, hey, we got 2 weeks to build a whole set. Can we do it? And believe me, I've been in that pressure. Okay. And if it wasn't for the amount of set construction classes, I'm pretty sure a lot of the productions there wouldn't look as spectacular as it would, in other places. Bones, I know you said you had thoughts. What were your thoughts?
I do. I want to agree with you on the aspect of some of the staff are phenomenal people, and they really do push you to be the best person you can be within theater and within life. Like Jess said, big shout outs to Michael Page, because I honestly also wouldn't be where I am today without that man in my life in any capacity. He really shaped my view on like how well I could be as not only like as a visual artist in terms of like drawing and stuff, but in terms of like costume design and being able to render my ideas in a way that I could present them to other people without sounding ridiculous. Another huge shout out to like Justin Townsend and Michael Redman. Those two men are also incredible human beings. Justin Townsend will continuously push his students to do the best thing they possibly can do without like hounding them for not being perfect at it, which I think is a important balance to have when you're a professor.
Yeah.
He genuinely like cares about his students and cares about making sure that they're okay, while also being able to be like, hey, maybe you could flesh this idea out a bit more, or maybe you can try something different to try to like show people what your ideas are without being too like, I guess, shy in a sense. He wants you to be confident in what you're presenting. And then Michael Redman is just a great person all around. Like, I don't think I would have enjoyed doing scenic work at all if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
I personally am not like a person that likes to delve into scenic stuff, but like Michael Redman in Scene Shop was incredible.
Yeah.
He basically taught me all I needed to know about building things, which is really, really cool. So I appreciate those two in particular and Michael Page.
I sometimes wonder if Redmond is a wizard, because him and Katie Miller would be so good together, and then it'd be like I would have class. Katie was my professor for my scenic shop thing. Her and Redmond would be like two peas in a pod, but at the same time, I would like Redmond was like, okay, just give me a couple of seconds, and then comes back with like all these supplies. I was like, I honestly wonder if Redmond is a wizard within this, realm of everything, because he is like legitimately that fast. Because he's like, okay, let me bring about, let me bring a couple of things back. He brings like, like a half a dozen things back, and sometimes it'd be like the stuff that you really need. All right, Emily, your thoughts?
I just want to make sure, Bones, did you get out all of your thoughts?
No,
Okay.
1,000,000%.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna agree so far with like what everyone has said. I also think one of the biggest things that I've taken away from Brooklyn College is like ways to make a space more inclusive.
Yeah.
The first and foremost being, providing the opportunities for students. Just having the opportunity to work on something is the start. And then also how not only how do you make a space more inclusive, but how do you make a space inclusive and also, what's the word I'm looking for? Safe and providing and beneficial for students. For example, don't just include a work by a BIPOC playwright just to say that you've included a
Yeah.
work by a BIPOC playwright in your season. You consider what is the subject of the show. Or do you have the actors to fill the roles for that show? Are you putting on a show that will be beneficial to your students, that has the opportunity for them? And also, oh no, did I cut out?
No, you're still here.
Oh, good, because my Wi-Fi cuts out sometimes. Not only does it provide the opportunity for students, but are you also making sure that you're not just providing shows of trauma to specifically BIPOC students or BIPOC in general?
Yeah.
It's
No, continue.
it's something that I think can be improved on in all spaces. This is not a dig at Brooklyn College. This is not a dig at anyone. I think
Oh, no.
inclusivity is something that can be worked on in every level, in every theater, everywhere. And it's something that we need to obviously actively practice and be better at to provide spaces for everyone. And not just BIPOC students, but queer BIPOC students, disabled BIPOC students, all students, everyone. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like, every space needs to be inclusive and safe for everyone.
Yeah, something that I was actually touching upon with my acting professor, Emmanuel Simons, and he was talking about how, as a gay man living in New York City in the 1980s, he was talking about all this stuff that was like really, really hard to deal with, especially when you're in that realm, especially in 1980s New York City, where it's like, oh, when you think of 1980s New York City, you think of, well, what type of crime movies came out during the 1980s, and that you kind of like, that's like your idea of 1980s New York City, and you wouldn't be that too far off. But nowadays, it's like, even though I feel like people are starting to become like a little more inclusive in theater, there is still a what's the term? A lack of proper representation, because there are still gay characters who are played by straight. What the hell was that? Straight? Heterosexual. There we go. Heterosexual actors or actresses. I remember there was a trailer for this movie that was either coming out either soon or maybe not soon. I'm not sure, but it was an actress portraying a person who was on the autism spectrum, I believe. And
Yep.
okay, you all know
I
that.
know exactly what you're
Yep.
talking about. The movie that
And-
C's producing.
Yeah, and
Oh yes.
the person who plays the autistic character in the movie is not played by a person who is autistic. I mean, who has autism in real life.
And I would also just like to add, Brian, they originally had hired an autistic actress, and they considered her, what do you call it? The environment was not suitable for her as an autistic actress, and so instead of changing the environment, they changed the actress.
Yeah, which is always
Ridiculous.
very shady to begin with, because I know it's like, oh, it's like, because film companies has always done it in the past, especially since. Okay, this is me as a film buff now, because I'm like, this is my area now. Okay, I'm sorry, folks. Film companies in general will do that. If they don't like an actor, they will just recast everybody in a moment's notice, especially with theater too. But I feel like, even though theater wants to be inclusive now, there's still that like wall there that's essentially blocking things. Even though there are queer actors, LBGQT plus performers actually gaining more and more traction. there's still being unable to get that traction going because it's still theater and it's still film too, because uh, there's still cis actors playing transgender roles. There's still cis actors playing transgender roles. There's still people, you know. So yeah, it's definitely theater being inclusive, but well, theater and film being inclusive to people with not only uh, disabilities but also personal choices, that sort of thing. People who identify as non-binary, trans, straight, uh, gay, lesbian, so forth and so on, they still feel like, oh, we are inclusive, but at the same time, it's sort of like a step back because they don't really want to be inclusive. There are people who do say that, and it's odd because I know at the either start of this semester or close towards the end of the previous semester, I know Brooklyn College had the same process. It's like, oh, we're gonna start hiring people who are like start hiring more people, all that stuff, who would be, more stuff like that. But I haven't heard anything about that, so I'm not sure. And of course, I'm a student. I'm an alumni there, so I have yet to hear anything about like, oh, this is the new staff we have, that sort of thing. And I know, and the closest I know of that sort of thing happening, and it may be in the more. I want to say it may be more in the main theater stuff. I might be wrong, but in the main theater stuff, I mean, like, the main departments like acting, that sort of thing too. So I could be wrong there. If I'm wrong, please give me a little saying, Brian, you're wrong. That sort of thing. But especially if you're watching right now too. But yeah, it's weird because theater now says, oh, we are all about inclusivity and all that stuff. And nowadays, it's like when you hear that, it's like there's still people who still cast the I want to say that the cookie cutter type where it's just basically the same exact person. It's like you're watching a play and it's the same exact person that you would probably say, hey, I like this character. I mean, I like this actor, but it's like they're playing the same exact character as before. So, and the weird thing about theater is that you could play a big stretch. It's theater. If you want to play a character who is a drunk, you could play a character who is a drunk. You don't have to act drunk in order to do that. You know, if you want to play, but but if there's a character who is legitimately written as someone who is disabled, go out your way and cast someone who is disabled. There are actors in theater and in film who are legitimately disabled. But I guess to save cost of money, they just hire someone who isn't disabled or something like that because it's I don't know. It's film and theater is a shady business. One day, a business that I love, but also a business I also hate because of the amount of people that are discouraged, especially about being actors and stuff like that too. Where it's just like, eh. I'm sorry, folks. Rant is over. I'm done.
No, it's
Um,
totally fine. I think you make a very valid point. That's one of the, at least coming from my perspective as somebody who, is now done with college, and I really don't have any plans to go back because I don't want to. It's
Master's degree. What is that?
my mom. Hello. um,
Nothing wrong with
it's
master's degree, but your time.
very true. Um, it theater, being in the ever ever loving entertainment industry, it carries a lot of fear and uncertainty with it because I like for as long as I have known, I was like, oh, I'm not good at STEM, so I want to step in, do something that's not STEM, which devolved into theater, which devolved into eh, perf- the arts in general, and now
Yeah.
it's really theater is just like a sub of the whole entertainment industry. So like stepping into the entertainment world, there is a level of terror to it, because it's like, oh, where's my paycheck coming from? When's the next role? How am I going to, can I make this my life support? And with all of this, with all entertainment industry, with all anything entertainment, you really do get to see
Yeah.
how hypocritical every single person is in there, because all of the officials, all of the platforms, they'll tell you, we love everybody, we want to give everybody a chance, and
Yeah.
everybody's welcome to join and be a part of stuff. And then you actually get into the business, and it's very,
Cutthroat.
very inclusive, and it's very exclusive.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. And it's very cutthroat, and really the only way, like before quarantine happened and everything got shut down, the only way I had gotten jobs was literally because I knew people. It
Yeah.
wasn't because of my own talent or anything. So there is that fear of like, oh, can I make it as well?
Yeah. Uh, yeah. That's the sad thing about both theater as a whole, because there are theater groups that are very say, oh yeah, we are we are inclusive, but at the same time they will be like, we just don't like this person because it's like they always late for work, that sort of thing, blah blah blah. Even though they could be an asshole in front of people. Uh-oh. Okay, I froze up there. I thought that'd be very weird. It's like, even though they'd be an asshole, and then anyway. But yeah, it's weird because theater growing up, I've had countless interactions with not only theater but just film in general, right? And it helps that my cousin is a off Broadway actress in her own time. She's done Broadway, she's done television, she's done film, so it helps her being, like that. But I think I remember talking to her like maybe once or twice, because it's hard to actually meet her because she doesn't live in New York City anymore, at least not around us. And I remember meeting her like maybe 20 years ago at a family reunion thing, right? And well, the only family reunion, because we had only one big family reunion, and then afterwards it just stopped being family reunions. But anyway, I remember talking to her, and she said, "Well, something along the lines of how theater is, or film. I mean, acting is great, but it's just like one of those things where it's just like it will take a toll on you and that sort of thing. So there are people who, and believe me, when I was a student at Hunter College, and I will be straightforward with this, it being an actor, starting at a place like a Hunter College, which is very elitist, by the way, they had the same thing where it's like, oh, we will be very inclusive, all that stuff, and then I'll be just like auditioning all that stuff. I'll be auditioning, and then they're like, it's like, and they would always go for the same thing, as I mentioned before, the same type of person for that role. Even though I would be in a great audition, they would cast someone else because they felt like I wouldn't be like a particular drawer or something like that. So I would be very, very disheartened over that. 10 not 10 years ago, close to 15 years ago or something like that. I was when I was at Kingsborough Community College, I actually was part of a 10-minute play, right? And this actress who I was in the scene with just wasn't comfortable to kissing me. So it was like, she must have talked to the director or something like that. And it got me like literally fired off the side because she just wasn't comfortable kissing me. And as I went to see the play the last time, if I remember correctly, they basically casted her boyfriend for that role. So basically, it's like what you just said before, Jess, where it's just like, who do you know, and how can they help you with these roles? And sometimes, and not sometimes, and most of the times, I feel like in entertainment, who do you know is the more along the lines of who do you know and who can help you can really help you in theater, but also film. I know people, but I haven't asked them like, hey, I haven't said, hey, I need that olive branch to go into theater, or I need that olive branch to go into film, because I rather do everything by my own. So yeah, and and I think, and to tie this into our main theme, which is the AOC Theater, I think that's why people such as yourselves have like grouped together and created not only an opportunity but also a theater group that can feel uh, involved with people of all types, people who aren't really actors, people who are actors, people who have disabilities, such as myself, uh, people who are, so forth and so on. But yeah, it's weird because, like I said before, when the theater at the start of the year was at a very weird peak, where it's just where a lot of the things was like the closest theater was at a tipping point in terms of a talking point was the West Side Story thing, where they basically hired someone who was what was it, a registered sex offender or something like that. Now at the end of the year, the talk of the town is the fact that there's a Ratatouille musical coming out, which is so weird in hindsight, where it's like at the start of the year, you go from people like literally picketing a very famous musical to the entire industry shutting down because of a virus, to basically Zoom theater, to now where the talk of the town is a musical based off of a non-musical thing. Ratatouille. I even fucking yeah. Theater is a weird business, but there are people such as yourselves who are giving opportunities to do theater that doesn't feel like, oh, just because you're not really a trained actor doesn't mean you still can't be part of our show. Believe me, I know I'm not like a trained actor. I don't have like years of training experience at Juilliard or Stella Agnew or the Actor Studio or something like that. I'm just a person who, I'm literally just a person who knows my acting just by watching people act on screen and stuff like that too. So, and I've had professors in the past who just call me very naturalistic because I don't think about the choices. I don't think about stuff like that too. I might ad lib a few lines here and there because in my process of reading the script, it may say something in the script, but my mind says something else. But if it still comes off at the same time as the script, they're like, okay, just don't worry about it. Brian's still doing the same thing, where it's just like, even though the line says I'm gonna go to the store, it's like I might say, I'll be right back. I'm going to the store I'll be right back. I'm going to the store. Something like that. No one would just say like, okay, you just say the line as normal. But yeah, it's weird how, well, not weird, but it's interesting to see how at the start of the year, how the theater was, like the theater world was, and because of what you said before with the quarantine and stuff like that, and how the industry was shut down, we have much more opportunities because of quarantine and the fact that theater hasn't really been on the up and up yet. It will return, but we don't know when, like fully. Supposedly in fall 2021, but that's if we're lucky. Uh, Yeah. So rant is over again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to those who are watching. Like Brian, just please stop ranting. Please stop ranting. But this is my show. But yeah,
I
this is what you paid. I mean, this is what you subscribe to. Okay. You were saying something?
yeah, I want to like talk a little bit about like the PR/networking situation, like extending the olive branch stuff.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like the concept of like, oh hey, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy that
Yeah.
is like 1 degree away from a famous person, therefore I can just, climb the social ladder, network, stuff like that. That's something I'm not a fan of. I don't think any of us in AOC are a fan of. We strive to be like as inclusive as possible, but not the inclusive where it's like we're so inclusive, but actually like we're not trying to do all
Yeah.
that. I feel like a lot of places and people in theater tend to do the PR move of inclusivity, where it's like, oh, we're so inclusive, wow, and then the minute you get your foot in the door, you try to get your foot in the door, and then it doesn't work because you're
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus, or like you're a BIPOC person, or like you're disabled, like it just all these things that add up, and they're like, oh well, no, and it's something that we want to avoid as much as possible because like we ourselves come from very different walks of life. Like I
Yeah.
myself am an LGBT person, a non-binary person. Like I am that. So like, and there's people among us that are like different walks of life and different ethnicities, races, etc. So like we strive to be like as opening and welcome to everyone because we are technically like everyone in a weird sense, like we are a collective of people that are incredibly different. And we want to encourage people who don't necessarily, again, have like experience in acting, experience in
Yeah.
directing, costume design. Like, there's a reason we have our whole like interest form set up where it's like select the things that you're interested in, and then we can go from there and be like, okay, cool, we need a costume designer. Here's a list of people that we're interested in costume designing, so on and so forth. And I think that's like something that's really cool that we do because I don't see a lot of theater companies doing that necessarily. It's more so like, oh, well, if you're a trained actor, then we'll have you. If you're a trained costume designer, then we'll have you. But if
Yeah.
you're not allowed to do either of those things. And I think that's something that is important, especially during quarantine times where like people are trying to pick up new skills and trying to learn new things. And giving people a space and an opportunity to do so is really important. And I think that that's something that's really cool. So.
Yeah. And you mentioning that just now where it's like, oh, you're an actor. Well, we'll figure it out like that. There are days where I could just remember applying for a job at a famous place, right? At a famous theater or something like that, and it was like, oh, even as an usher, because I've done ushering, and I could tell you the amount of times as an usher that I bumped into famous people or something like that, and the most famous person I bumped into as an usher was probably James Franco, and he was in Airhead, so no surprise. So yeah, it's odd that even when you do want to try and extend an olive branch for people who you do know, especially and the weird thing is that theater is a small world, and I always say that not sarcastically. I mean that legitimately. Theater is a small world. There are people who you will know who might work on another show in maybe 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 years, and sometimes impressions really do help you. So yeah, and it also helps to build a network also in theater, not only not only as a not only to network just regularly, just network in theater, but also network with people who you think will be great fits to work with, to be able to work with you, especially in the future, especially if you want to put them on a production and say, hey, you know, I know, I'm going to need a good steady crew with this. Like, who would I know? Who would I know as a great, who can I, yeah, who would I know in my right mind could help me with productions design? Who would I know with scenic design? So forth and so on. Who would I know, or who would I ask to be my stage manager? Who would I ask if I want to be ASM? Who would I want to know to be director? So the form itself, like, selecting that form where it's just like, hey, what are you interested in? It's a great idea, and I hope to see other places like doing their stuff. Is like, hey, what is your interest in theater? Are you an actor? Yes. Are you a playwright? Yes. Are you someone who is in lighting? Okay, I'm not in lighting, so I'm not in that. Do you have sound design experience? Yes, I do have sound design experience. Set design, so forth and so on. Do you want to work front of the house? Yeah, of course. So being someone who has strived to be in theater but has felt the inclusive like the negativity in that theater space, it's actually good because of, I think, of what this whole conversation was has been like sort of like bounding together, which is essentially, if it wasn't for quarantine, theater wouldn't be that sort of inclusive now, but it is sort of getting to that point because of quarantine. So yeah, but in the process, there are groups that are opening more and more, especially with theater, especially with this group, that is allowing other people to not only have, say, it's like have a home. There we go. A home to actually go to in terms of theater, even if it's going to be like a small home over like this for the time being. But even when you don't, even if you do know these uh, alliance of creatives, they're great people to work with. So yeah, I think that's it with my question. Oh, okay. I do have one good question left. So AOC Theatre and AOC herself, was that on the nose, or was that something that this was something like kind of like by coincidence? Because I've been wondering this for the past few months.
It was a complete accident.
I wish we
Yeah.
were connected to her. I
my
wish. Oh
God.
my god.
Also, shout out to AOC if you want to sponsor us.
Girl, call us up. Let's play some Mungus.
Let's play some Among Us. Like, let's get that connection. Honestly, okay. What's really funny about that whole situation is that we were trying to avoid the acronym ACT, like ACT, because
Oh,
there are
okay.
multiple bigger theaters that have that acronym. And we're like, okay, we don't want to like get in the mix of that and like get lost in the Google search.
Yeah.
But in the process, we ended up getting associated with AOC, and I'm like, well,
Oh, damn it.
all right. This is what we live with now.
I mean, I'm not gonna complain if we get associated with her.
If we get associated with her, she gets tagged in our posts. You know what?
That's it.
Build
Cross
that
promo.
Hey, it's more traction for you, and also it's more PR for you. So I would think Bones as the PR person, you'd be like, hey, all right.
Nah. It's a lot. We do often get that question though. I believe under our first Q&A, that was one of the first questions we got was like, are you associated? We were like, no, unfortunately.
But no.
Uh,
I think just real quick, just to like drive home the point and like give this all a nice close, talking about, the connections that we make and how we would love to, make a connect with AOC, hit us up. I think one of the biggest things about making connections and the way that we can start to move away from the only way you can do theater is to know people is like you connect with the people that you genuinely want to work with. Don't just connect with people that like you're like, oh, this person's gonna help me in the future. Like, I feel like AOC is weirdly enough a great example of this. Like, yes, of course you want to connect with AOC because she's a person of power, but also we all genuinely look up to her and like is a person that we would want to have a connection with, not just in terms of work, but as a person. And I think that's something that's so important in theater is like not like making connections is of course important, but make connections with the people that you actively enjoyed working with and would want to work with again and want to see outside of work. And I think that's something that we also hold like really close to us is like we keep bringing back the people that we want to work with because we enjoy them. We enjoy their personality and their work ethic, and just being able to spend time with them in a work environment.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is another like really big pillar of ours. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in as a nice little closer.
And it makes sense with your name because it is an alliance of creatives, and alliance is really a network of people, but I mean it's a group of people, I should say, but it really should be with people who you know and trust, but also people who you feel the most in tune with. Because, and that's the thing with theater is that if you're not with, if you're not really with people that you are in tune with, then I forgot who said it before. Oh, it was Jess, where it's like the productions will suck, and if you're with people that you are in tune with, the productions will be awesome, and you just want to keep on going and going with the notion. But yeah, I do have three more questions, and they're pretty much easy ones. So, like I mentioned before, by the time of this recording, Trifles have already been up, but or should be up, or in the process of being going up, depending on how
Hopefully.
fast.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Knocking on wood.
Uh, are there any productions that we might want to hear about in the future, or are you just wanting like, well, just keep everyone in the dark for now?
I mean, we do have, which I mean, we've been very vocal about this, and we mentioned to everybody who was working on the first part of Almost Maine, but we are planning on doing the second act, so a second part of Almost Maine is planning on coming, and then Trifles is our big header for next year. Like that's our like a little more professional route thing that we want to go around with since
Yeah.
our readings have been pretty laxed. But with Trifles, we're trying to make it just a smidge, a little more professional with doing a staged reading. So having like rehearsals and
Stuff like that.
yeah. But I think keeping people guessing for the rest of the year, especially since we're like 2 days away from the new year,
Yeah.
is gonna be fun. Keep people guessing, and if they're interested, they can always fill out our interest form and keep up to date.
Which I'll have in the description, by the way.
Appreciated.
So the next question is, so social media plug. I know there's a lot of social media, so I know you have a Facebook page, YouTube, and Instagram. So, what have you? What is the main social media factions or pages that people want to go flock to and actually follow you guys? Because yous are always great to talk with, but their products are even better because, as you just mentioned before, um, we just did a production of no, not production. We just did the first act of Almost Maine. The entire thing looks beautiful, just from start to finish. So so where can we watch you? Where can we tweet about you and stuff like that?
Real quick plug to Z for making that video look so beautiful as it
Very
is,
true.
because
Great.
without Z, damn, it would be literally me and Erica editing, and who that would be at times. So like, shout outs to Z for being great. But if y'all want to take away social medias, feel free.
Sure. Do a quick round of all the social medias. So we have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All of them are with AOC Theatre. You can find all of that there with that little at. That's our at. And then our YouTube is just Alliance of Creatives. Very short and simple. That's where we post all of the videos there for all of our readings so far, and we have the 2 Over the Garden Wall parts up. If you want to go see them, they're very good. They're very lovely. There's some very lovely people who are a part of it. And then Almost Maine is up there too as well. If you want to go give it a little love, was up 2 days ago, 2 days ago.
A couple days ago, just right after Christmas.
Yep.
The perfect Christmas story. Uh, Now, do you have any in relation to that? Do you have any social medias that you do want to plug, like actual social, like instead of AOC Theater, do you have social medias that you want to plug?
I mean, Andrea,
All
plug
right,
your
cool. I
stuff.
was waiting to see if y'all. Okay, hi. I'm Bones the artist on literally every social media platform. Everything. I'm not kidding. Changed my nickname over literally 3 days ago. So everything is all the same. The ad is always Bones the artist. I stream on Twitch sometimes. Brian mentioned that earlier. That's real fun. Been doing that for a good month now, and it's been a real fun time. But yeah, that's me.
Uh, and of course, my last question is a fairly obvious, easy question to ask, depending on how I phrase it. But to those who are actually going into theater, or at least in this theater world where they are essentially somewhat burned out from theater or something like that, or recovering from theater, missing theater, what advice do you have, especially if they are an emerging theater artist, especially going forward into 2021?
Have- Sorry. Have a side hobby. Have something else that you enjoy. Um, I'm also going to shamelessly plug myself for a bit. Starting in 2021, I'm planning to stream The Sims. I promise this is relevant. I'm planning to start streaming myself playing The Sims. And I mentioned this. Also, my ad is at Little Instagram on everything. But the reason I mention this is because theater does burn you out. No
Yeah.
matter what part of theater you do, actor, stage manager, designer, whatever, it's gonna burn you out. You need something on the side that is still creative. You can still get your creative juices flowing, but that you can just have fun with. It's not your job. It is not your sustenance, your education. It is just something that you can do for fun and to like escape the drowning for a second. Have a hobby, have something fun and creative. I
Yeah.
recommend The Sims because I find it fun. But do whatever you want. Have something else that you can enjoy for you, essentially, to combat the burnout.
I will say the one thing that I have found, because I even though I try to stay positive most days about the whole theater thing, there are days where I'm just like, damn, am I really ever gonna have a job now? Um, I will say one thing that really, really does help is putting your creativity towards something else. Theater just physically can't be done right now. We can't all hop into a theater and just create because, COVID. Um, and it, it really does putting your creativity towards something, whether it's being like popping your webcam on and just like doing something silly and spontaneous, or making a YouTube video, or writing something, or painting a picture, just like any source of creative outlet that you can just put out there will just it will help you. It will just help. It'll make you feel better, and it'll keep your mind still in that artistic zone, so that once everything comes back, you will not have lost anything, that your creative juices are still there. You're still able to uh to do what you love. I'm also going to shamelessly plug s- uh Discord. If you want to ever sponsor me, please. But Discord is a great service that we all use it for just simply communicating or hanging out, or if we want to share something with everybody, or we want to like play games together, or do something. If we're really lonely one night, or we just need somebody to hang out with and talk, it's a great thing to use, and to just be connect be connected to people, because I know if I know as theater people, we love connecting with people and talking to people. So if you can find any way to just talk to somebody, it really does help.
To piggyback off of that, a little piece of advice: do the thing that you want to do. Don't. I understand if you want things to be flawless and perfect for your first like venture out into the internet, if you're gonna be posting or if you're gonna start painting or if you're gonna do something. Like Emily and Jess have said, like your creative outlet, like getting your hobby going. Don't be afraid of it. Do it. The longer you sit there and be like, but what if I'm not good? The longer you're going to sit there and be miserable and feel burnt out and not feel like you're capable of doing things. But you are. You're completely capable of doing things. Literally just sit down, buckle down, put yourself through it. And then once you're done, you're going to sit back and be like, I did that. And I'm proud
Yeah.
of that. And that's important. And that's my piece of advice for anybody.
Yes, especially with me, because this show, even though I love producing and hosting the show, there are days where this show does burn me out, and I do need those time to recover. And with my job now, it has actually allowed me to feel a lot more in control of my own show, but also, like you just said before, this isn't really a side hobby. It's more like a passion of mine that is now sidelined because of my actual job. But, anyway, that's enough of making fun of myself. Emily, Bones, Jess, it's been great talking to you all. This has been episode 7 of season 4 of Performing Arts. My name, as always, is Brian M. Davis. Yeah, catch you all the next time, and stay safe. Happy New Year if you're watching. Well, this is called anyway.
Happy New
Anyway.
Year.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Stay safe.